Okay. All right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our finishing week of BK 161. And this is going to be our last Wednesday night class because class does end on Tuesday at 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. So I put a banner up on the class page in bright red for a reminder. And no assignments are accepted after this time because we have to close out class. And we don't set the times. We just let you guys know the times, and our superiors set the time. So that's when class ends this Tuesday, December 17th, 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. So try to get your assignments going early this week and work on them over the weekend. Give yourself some wiggle room, and we have quite a bit to do this week. But before we talk about assignments on guys, I just wanted to let you know I've been putting some things in the class cafe. I know in our special live session we talked about a little bit about graduation and finishing dates in your next class. So I'm just going to pull up the class cafe, and I've made some posts in there lately, and I put it in the class cafe instead of announcements in case anyone wanted to reply to it. So you can reply with a question there if you want to. So let me pull that up real quick, and we're going to take a look at it. And then we will carry on to all the other things that we have to talk about tonight. Okay. All right, guys. Okay. So this is our class cafe, and ask your questions here. And I've been putting some things up here this week. See some posts from me this week. Today I put up this one, how to keep your chef coats clean. I got a nice article on that. I know it came up. We have winter games. We have a contest here, and Chef Janet is the lead instructor in the culinary program, and she's leading this contest. And I can pull it up for us just really quick. We'll take a look at it. And this is for everyone. They're going to be giving away prizes, and it's kind of a fun contest. If you click on the Google link, you'll see the specifics for the contest, and you have to have all of your entries in by January the 15th. And it's another one of these things where you post on Instagram, but there is a little note here from Janet. If you don't have an Instagram account, you can email it to Janet's email. So check that out in the class cafe. And let's kind of go back to the class cafe real quick. Okay. And I also put up here your next class is BK 201, and that is with Chef Megan Henke, and she's going to be joining us on Monday at 12:30 p.m. We're going to be doing a special live session so you guys can meet Megan. It's just going to be a short session if you want to jump in. Otherwise, I will record it so you can meet your next instructor. And at that time, she'll tell you when your class time is. I think that it is at 11:30 on Wednesdays, but sometimes class times change. So we can talk to Megan about that on Monday when we see her, and that's Monday the 16th. And your next block schedule, your course block schedule and your finishing date. I put up the link for the Google document that you guys had in orientation. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. I know that we had a couple of questions on this as well. Okay, so I did put up here your finishing date is August the 18th. There's a graduation ceremony every spring in Boulder, Colorado at Mackey Auditorium, like I mentioned before. And since you guys will graduate in August at the 18th, that's past the spring graduation, so then you'll be in the next spring graduation. You'll get an invite from Career Services, but you can always email or message them as well. This is a link I put up here for you guys. I know I'm going through this quick, but you guys can go to the class cafe. This is your block schedule that was in orientation, so I put up a copy for us here. And this is your next class, BK 201 after winter break. You're going to have CE 155 and CE 225 as well. So you can look at that up in class cafe. And what else did I put up there for you guys? I know I made a couple of posts recently. The extra credit assignment. Oh, I accidentally clicked out of there, guys. Sorry. Message you guys about the extra credit assignment and bonus. credit is at the bottom of the class page. That needs to be submitted by the 17th as well, 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. That's any bread, yeast risen bread recipe that you want to make, as long as it hasn't been an assignment so far. And then we are giving bonus points for makeup assignments. Anyone who submits a makeup assignment before December 15th, which is Sunday night, we're going to give you bonus points. I'll take off a late penalty off an assignment that you submitted. We want you guys to get those in and stay on track. So we're doing this little bonus point incentive for you. So take advantage of it. I mean, especially if you know, something happened and you had to submit a couple assignments late, I can take off those late penalties, and that's really going to help you a lot. Okay, so please, guys, visit the class cafe. Okay, I just wanted to show you that because I've been kind of, you see like my picture going all the way down. I made so many posts for you guys. Okay, so finishing up croissant week, but this week, before we talk about croissants, you guys have a busy week ahead of you. So try to stay on track, start doing some of your work now. Okay, you've got those little bit of easy things to do, like your conversion check. That's 5 points. I would do that tonight right after class if you haven't done it so far. Then you've got your knowledge check too, which is typical, like 15 questions. And then you also have a final exam. So that's timed. You have to finish it in 90 minutes, an hour and a half, but you can take it again for a better score. But keep in mind that's, you know, 50 questions is going to take you a while, so don't wait till Tuesday night to do that for your first time. So maybe try it out, do it for your first time. You may do better than you think. And also, guys, all tests, knowledge checks, conversion checks, and final exam open book. You can use any resources that you have here from your text reading or also from the internet as well. Okay, we're not expecting you to memorize everything. You do have a discussion forum on puff pastry. We're going to take a look at that really quick, and then we're going to talk about the baked puff pastry assignment. So right there, it took me a couple minutes just to explain everything you guys have to do. So start early, and anyone that didn't submit croissant, be sure that you get that in by Thursday, 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. With all of these assignments in this very last week, the sooner the better. I think I gave you guys the example last week. You know, I walked in my kitchen to do something. I needed to get it done for school here that night. And guess what? My power like went out when I started pulling stuff out of the cabinet. So, you know, that it's everything like that always happens at the, you know, the wrong time. And especially we're in the winter season, if you're in a snowy climate or bad weather can be anywhere. Okay. So we highly recommend getting things in early because we have to shut down the class on Tuesday because Chef Jason and I have to finish all the grading by Wednesday to get you processed into your next classes, okay? So the site is going to be closed for maintenance on the 20th, and it shouldn't be closed for too long, and then you guys can get back on the site. You can't do any work in your new class until the class starts in January on the 8th, but you can, you know, review material in this class or your past classes as well. So the site will be up. It's just going to be closed briefly for maintenance. All right. So croissant wise, you guys did a super nice job, and I saw some really good croissants, and I know even if they didn't turn out just right, they were still delicious. So I think that you guys did great. We saw some beautiful golden brown coloring. We saw that beautiful crescent shape, and you guys should be really proud of yourselves for your very first time doing a laminated dough. You did really, really good. And I wanted to make croissant just seeing those because it just made me so hungry because they really look delicious. So you guys did great, but I'm wondering before I turn it over to Chef Jason, you know, what worked, what didn't work? Did you guys have any challenges or things that you really liked about the assignment that you want to share? I'm checking out the chat too. Okay, Jessica wants to end. That's a good sign. Okay, so Emma had a really good question. So after the 17th, you will not be in class. That's right. Class is finishing on the 17th, and then you're going to go on your winter.
I'm tired.
Oh, we got a little bit of noise. All right, guys. I see love croissants. easier than it sounded. Yeah, it's just like a process, you know, you have to allow time for the rolling. So did anyone have any thoughts on what was working, what wasn't working for them with the croissant? Okay, Cecilia, when is the assignment due again? All of the assignments for this week, finishing week, your puff pastry, your forum, your conversion check, your knowledge check, and your final exam due by Tuesday, December the 17th. 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. So you won't have a late policy if anyone, you know, has had to use the late policy before. We're not having a late policy this week. We've got to cut the class on Tuesday. All right, so get everything in early and double check your links before you submit them, guys, too, because we don't have a lot of wiggle room. James is asking what shape will be due. We'll talk about puff pastry in a little bit. We'll talk about some shaping. Okay, so before I turn it over to Chef Jason, any thoughts on croissants, guys? Any challenges? Okay, Emma had the most problem with the butter not coming out of your dough, thinning too much. So the butter wasn't coming out of your dough, or it was coming out?
Kind of like in the front, you know how it go out in the front, like when you're rolling it and the butter kind of gush out in the front.
It was coming out.
Yeah.
Did you use butter and not margarine? Because I used butter.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. It could have just been too soft. If that ever happens, that means it needs to be refrigerated more. So when you put butter in the dough, was it bendable? Was it still chilled when you put it in there?
It was still and bendable, but then when I put it in and I followed the same process the chef did, but as I would roll, it was still kind of gush out. I seen it on the puff chef pastry video as well when he was rolling it and he had to push it back in. So sometimes as I roll to the back, the butter come out. Just a little bit.
Sometimes
it just came out just a little bit to the front.
Yeah, sometimes a little bit will come out and you kind of have to tuck it back in. Sometimes I'll sprinkle a little bit of flour. But guys, we got some noise coming up tonight, so guys, just keep yourself on mute. I know it's easy to undo. Yeah, a little bit should come out, but not too much. What kind of butter did you use, Emma?
It's like Land O'Lakes. That's what I
Land O'Lakes. Okay. Yeah, you should have been okay with that Land O'Lakes butter. Like I said, if margarine was used, or sometimes European butters can be a little bit softer as well. So anytime that you have more butter coming out than Chef Tom had, I would say refrigerate it. It's gotten too warm for some reason, and that's going to help with the butter coming out too. All right, and you know, sometimes too, if you're having trouble with the butter coming out a little bit, maybe a little bit more gentle rolling too, that'll help a little bit, like maybe not so hard and like pushing so hard. So I would try that as well. So as far as, you know, when you folded it up and all was said and done and you formed your croissant, how was it? Was it good? Okay, good, good. Yeah, like I said, guys, you know, sometimes if they're not perfect and we have challenges, these laminated doughs, they take a little bit of practice, but they're still delicious even when they're not perfect. So absolutely. Okay, so Trinice had fun with it. Family loved it. So yeah, I'm seeing, and I've been hearing that too, like all week long. Oh my God, I loved them, and they're all eating. I only got one. So that's one thing you have to do is make sure you put it aside for yourself, and so you have to, you know, to be able to enjoy your work too, because it can disappear quickly, especially things like this, aromas. You're making it for a day and a half. All right, good, good. I'm going to turn the table over to Chef Jason. If you guys think of any questions, put them in the chat, or you can always message us after class as well. All right, Chef Jason, what do you think?
Well, I saw some really good work come in, and I know that, you know, Chef Susie and I spent a lot of the previous class kind of talking everyone down from the ledge, you know, in terms of, you know, the approach to laminated doughs and croissants, and I think everybody really nailed it. And you know, one thing that Chef Susie just mentioned was you know, when you think about what the assignment is for the croissants, we are making croissants, that is the assignment, but we're also learning laminated doughs. So when you look at that checklist that we went over where we had the 14 or 15, you know, photos that were required, how many of them revolved around, you know, the rectangular piece of dough with then the barrage, plus 3 additional photos for each turn, and really specifying the photo of the cross section. And so much of the assignment is about the laminating of the dough, getting that flaky texture. The shape in this, you know, the shaping is in a way somewhat secondary because we're wanting to learn that technique. And that's what everybody was just really nailing. You know, shaping, you know, maybe you had a triangle that wasn't exactly an isosceles triangle and it didn't roll perfectly, or maybe it could have proved a little bit longer. All of those things are quick fixes. The real meat of the assignment was, you know, getting that laminated dough down. And I saw so many cross sections of croissants that were, maybe they were perfectly shaped, maybe they were less than perfectly shaped, but almost all of them had this beautiful flaky crust on the inside. And that's what we're looking for. All those other things are easy to fix, but you're going to see, you know, how this translates, you know, into, you know, French pastry moving forward. This is a super important technique to learn. There really aren't too many shortcuts, you know, when it comes to doing this. I know Chef Susan and I know we have definitely over the course of the years seen recipes that say 1, 2, 3 croissant dough or 1, 2, 3 laminated dough, and there'll be some sort of quick technique in there to, you know, not have to do those folds, but there really is no true substitution for that. And so I think after getting past this one, you know, moving forward into this week with puff pastry, which you'll notice, if anybody has looked at the formula, does anybody notice what ingredient is missing from this week's assignment with puff pastry as opposed to every other assignment we've done? Linda shot her hand up right away.
No yeast.
No yeast. So we were finishing with no yeast, but we are going to be using a very similar technique. So where you may have felt slightly uncomfortable with the croissants this last week, which you all nailed anyway, you're going to feel really cozy coming into the puff pastry week. And it's going to be a lot of fun.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, I was super impressed. And, you know, I actually sent Chef Susie a message, I think it was maybe this afternoon or last night, and said, you know, these assignments that are coming in are just really good. You know, they are just really good. There were tons of croissants that could have been put into a bakery case and sold at that moment. So very pleased. You all should be very, very happy with yourselves. Did we lose you, Susie? Hello? Can everybody hear me? All right, that's a good sign. Well, I think Chef Susie got dropped off here. Well, she'll be coming back soon. So, yes, thank you. All righty. So, well, until she comes back, who wants to just jump in and say what their biggest challenge was with those croissants and maybe anything that they would do differently next time? What was the thing that surprised you the most about making the croissants? Yeah.
Yeah, what I liked about the most, the way they came out, the texture, the crispness, and the flavor was just amazing. Good taste.
Yeah. And you know, did anybody notice in the course of making the croissants, you know, we look, you know, you look at the method of production and you realize, okay, there's a lot of steps here. But did anybody really notice how little you were actually handling the dough? And most of that time was actually spent in the refrigerator and not even on the bench. Wasn't that, I mean, you really back up from that and you realize, oh, wait a minute, you know, the refrigerator is really doing a lot of the work here. I'm just having to be kind of the facilitator every once in a while, pulling the dough out, rolling it, doing the fold and putting it back in. And so, you know, what ends up looking like it's going to be maybe an all-day process, really the time that you need to associate with it is much smaller. And I think once you break that down going forward, you realize, oh, okay, I feel really confident about knocking out these croissants really quick because I know I can put it in the freezer, I can walk away, I can make the dough, I can walk away. So yeah, much easier and quicker than it seems. Chef Susie's back.
Awesome. Sorry about that, guys. I don't know what happened. It's good things. I've been acting kind of wonky here all day long. But yeah, we saw some great croissants, and it's really just a process. And we're going to kind of mimic that process again this week when we make our puff pastry dough. So we're going to think of, you know, chilled dough. We want our dough to be chilled again. And what's really neat about the puff pastry is it's unique because it doesn't have any yeast in it. So we're not really battling that fermentation this week at all. But we don't have the fermentation for the lift and volume. So we're going to be doing more folds this week. So it's really going to be, you know, mixing the dough in the same way and then laminating the dough in the same way with some more folds. And our dough is going to be chilled again. And it's also going to, we're going to encase the butter or the barrage. I know I got a couple of questions about that. I know barrage is kind of like a fancy term for just some butter, but it's, you know, the technique that we use, you know, pounding it down and making it in that shape so it encases in the dough nicely. That's why we give it that name. So our barrage is going to be bendable and chilled again, and our dough is going to be chilled, and we're going to leave it rest and chill in between all of the folds again. And then ideally, guys, once you do all of these folds, ideally it's best to let it rest and chill overnight, but the minimum 4 to 6 hours. So this isn't something that you want to work on Tuesday of next week. You want to start working on this over the weekend as soon as you can. Okay, guys. So with the puff pastry, like I said, there isn't any yeast in it, so we won't have the fermentation. And not in the puff pastry recipe that we're using in particular in class this week, but when you start exploring and doing some research, you may come across puff pastry and there may be a little bit of lemon juice in there, or there may be a little bit of vinegar, and you may say, oh, what is that for? Give it some tangy flavor. Well, you're not putting much in there, but it's going to help with the oxidation of that bran that's in the flour, because you don't have any microbiology going on in there like we've experienced so far with, you know, the yeast and the bacteria growing. It's really, you know, just kind of a plain dough. So I wanted to just show you guys something. I wasn't able to find oxidation of puff pastry dough, but I did find a really good example on King Arthur's site showing pie dough, because it's another dough that doesn't really have any microbiology going on in there. So I just want to show you guys this really quick, and it's not the greatest picture, but I think it's really going to give you an idea, if you've never seen oxidation, what it looks like. Okay, hang on for 1 second. Okay, guys, so here we go. So like I said, I captured just from King Arthur's site. This is pie dough with water only, and then pie dough with some vinegar. You can see the water only one, it starts to turn a little bit gray, and it gets that speckling to it too. So we may have seen that before when we made doughs like this, and that's exactly what's happening. It's oxidation. So it's not only the discoloring, it gets a little, I always describe it as odd, like an odd texture. It kind of gets kind of droopy and limp and kind of sticky too. So you'll see a change in the structure as well. So that's why you'll see that additional acidic ingredient every now and then. Okay, so that's kind of, you know, the story behind that a little bit. All right, so let's go ahead and talk a little bit about our puff pastry. We're going to look at the formula, and then as far as making things with your puff pastry, you guys can make anything that you like this week. We have a pommier cookie up on the class page, which is very classic and excellent thing to make with your puff pastry. So I recommend making those, and you can make a lot of different things. We'll look at some pictures and some ideas, but really up to you what you want to make. Be sure that whatever you make, you're showing Chef Jason the inside of that. Okay, guys, so want to see all those flaky layers that you're working so hard with your rolling. So let's go ahead and take a look at the formula on the class page, and then we'll go ahead and take a look at the video that Chef Tom made. All right, hopefully Chef Cheesy is gonna hang out, not disappear. I'm like, oh my God, I wonder if they're wondering where I went. Like I'm on Christmas break earlier or what? All right, guys. So this puff pastry is going to contain 2 flours, bread flour and all-purpose flour. We've got salt and we've got a little bit of softened butter. We've got some very cold water, ice cold water. You're going to have your barrage, which is your butter that you're going to be using for your roll-in. So we have a great video by Chef Tom. So we're going to show the technique of making this in the video with Chef Tom, and then you can refer to this formula. And there's just a lot of writing here about the steps and the folding, but I think it's a little bit easier to watch the video. Okay, so we do have 50% water, and we've got 10% butter, which is going to help with that the gluten elasticity a little bit. And let's go ahead and take a look at the video. So hang on for 1 second, guys. I think I have it over here. Nope. Is that okay? Yeah, this is it. And this is on the class page for you too. All right. Oh, you know what? I have to go back. I'm sorry, guys. And I have to share the sound. Sorry about that. Okay. There's like a different thing for showing the sound. Hearing the sound, I should say.
Puff pastries are one of those products that has endless variation between bakers. Most of the techniques, however, share some common ground. A puff pastry is made from laminated or rolled in dough, meaning it's made up with hundreds of paper-thin layers of butter and dough. They rise to about 8 times their original thickness due to the steam that develops during baking. There are 2 main areas of variation between different preparations. For one, the formula can vary, typically in regard to the amount of fat. Secondly, there are many ways of enclosing the butter as well as rolling in. In this very traditional preparation, the melted butter makes the dough golden and crisp. To make puff pastries, start by adding all the ingredients except the barrage of butter into the mixer bowl with the dough hook attachment. Once they're all added, turn the mixer on low and mix for 1 minute to 1.5 minutes. It should appear smooth and sticky.
Guys, keep in mind, if anyone does not have a mixer, you can definitely mix this by hand because it's going to have some firmness to it, but it's not going to be a real sticky dough that's going to be real hard to mix by hand. So you can absolutely mix this by hand.
You notice I added a little bit extra water there because if the dough appears a little bit too dry and you have to kind of adjust, you can. But again, use your ice water.
Okay, guys, and keep little things like that in mind, but don't be quick to add a lot of hydration. If you feel like it needs a little bit of help coming together because you guys are trained professionals now, then you can add a little bit of water. And like Chef Tom said, he is using ice water. He's using very cold water. We want to think chilled with this dough again this week because we're adding butter to it, okay?
It's going to be a lot smoother that way than having a very, very dry dough. You want a dough that's not completely dry. After the dough is mixed, remove it from the bowl and roll it into a 9-inch by 4.5-inch rectangle on a lightly floured bench. Now this dough we're just going to press into a rough rectangle and then we're going to roll it out a little bit more.
Okay, guys, taking a look at this dough, it's not real smooth as we saw with some of our earlier doughs like our French bread dough and roll doughs that we are kind of like folding and kneading and creating tension for that smoothness. It's just fine here having a little bit of texture to it, okay?
Just a light dusting of flour on the bench is all you need. Good. Dust off the excess flour. This will make it easier for you to roll it up in plastic. When the rectangle is formed, wrap the dough tightly in plastic and place it into the freezer. Wrapping it tightly prevents the dough from developing a skin. Next, take the barrage of butter and pound it into a square, 4.5 inches by 4.5 inches. Wrap this in plastic and place it in the refrigerator. Both the dough and the butter should be chilled for 20 minutes. Leave the sides open on the plastic to allow it to stretch all the way. You'll eventually tighten it up to make it a 4.5 inch square. Now we're going to seal all the sides. After shaping the butter, place it in the refrigerator for about 20 minutes. After 20 minutes, remove both the dough and the butter and allow them to stand for 5 minutes to slightly warm up the two. It makes it a bit easier to roll out. When the 5 minutes is passed, the two separate products should be roughly the same working consistency. They should be cool but able to be rolled. Now that the fat and dough are ready, start the rolling in process by placing the butter block onto the center of the dough. You might find that the dough has contracted a bit when it was in the freezer, so we may have to roll this out a little bit more. Test fit it. It doesn't reach now, so we're going to go ahead and roll it out a little bit longer before we put the butter in. The two ends should meet the middle, creating a seam. You turn it 90 degrees, you're going to roll it with the seam. The rectangle should be approximately 30 inches by 7 inches. The dough should always be moving on the table, never let it stick. And just to start, you want to kind of just soften it up a little bit. Give it some quick presses. And then continue to roll this out.
Sorry, guys. Oh, I accidentally started it in the beginning. Hang on.
It makes it a bit easier to roll out.
Sorry about that.
So we should meet the middle, creating a seam. And just to start, you want to kind of just soften it up a little bit.
Okay, I like the way that Chef Tom is showing how he's just softening it a little bit and then he's kind of gently rolling it. Maybe, I know that Emma mentioned earlier that her butter was coming out. If you kind of push down real hard in the center and then start rolling, that could force that butter out as well. So just remember this technique that he's using.
Give it some quick presses. And then continue to roll this out.
He's just kind of gently rolling it. He started on one end.
Be gentle in this early stage because the butter could be pushing out towards the ends. You also don't want to break up the butter inside. Since the dough and the butter are the same consistency, they should roll together. If you find yours is kind of fighting you, give it a little bit of rest. Eventually you'll get it out to about 30 inches. It may not get all the way to 30 inches. You really want to be aware of the texture of the dough and the butter. If it's getting too soft, don't roll any further. Don't try to get it to the 30 inches. But you want to check both sides, make sure that they're both about the same thickness, and continue to roll. That little bit of resting will help it roll out even longer. Now I feel it getting pretty thin on this one side here. So that tells me that's about as far as I can go. I'm gonna finish up just this end right here. May put a little bit of flour down right here just to make sure that there's no sticking at all. But that looks pretty good. Again, allow it to relax. Get your hands up underneath it. Brush off the excess flour. And you're gonna fold this end down 3/4 of the way towards this end. And this end, you're gonna bring up to meet this end, creating a seam. Again, brush the excess off. And you're gonna fold it in half again. This is called a double fold. You're gonna turn it 90 degrees clockwise. Notice that the seam is on the left-hand side, and when it comes out of the refrigerator, I'm gonna make sure that the seam is on the left-hand side when I roll it out for turn 2. Once this fold cycle is completed, tightly wrap the dough in plastic wrap and place it in the refrigerator for 20 minutes. After 20 minutes, remove the dough and allow it to sit at room temperature for 5 minutes before repeating the same process. Roll it out to 30 inches by 7 inches, and again, turn it 90 degrees clockwise before returning it to the refrigerator for another 20 minutes. Again, remember what side the seam was on. In this case, it was on the left-hand side. We're gonna put down some flour for our bench, moving, and a little bit for the top for the rolling pin. Again, be gentle on that first roll until you get started. Make sure the dough can move on the bench at all times. Though it may seem like a lot, the relaxing time is really important to this dough. Again, use your judgment to see how long you can make it. 30 inches is your goal, but you may not reach that. That's okay. It looks like it's getting pretty strong, so I'm not going to roll it any farther. This is about as far as it can go. Looks really good at this point. I'm going to brush off the excess flour. And again, we want that offset seam, so it's not right in the middle. It's about 75% down this way. And then fold it in half again. Turn it 90 degrees clockwise. And again, my seam is on the left-hand side. At this point, the dough needs to be refrigerated for another 20 minutes. Repeat the cycle for a third and fourth turn. Wrap thoroughly and return the dough to the refrigerator overnight before baking. Each turn further incorporates the butter into the flour, which creates the flaky layers. The dough is ready to use after resting 6 to 8 hours or overnight in the refrigerator. It can also be tightly wrapped and put into a freezer storage bag and kept for up to 2 months. To use the frozen dough, simply allow it to slow thaw in the refrigerator before using. There are a number of ways of utilizing the finished puff dough. Just some examples including making turnovers or bear claws, or using it as an alternative tart dough, or simply filling it with brie and baking. Puff pastry dough is versatile with numerous applications and is a foundational viennoiserie skill.
All right. right, there you guys go. Puff Pastry by Chef Tom. Super nice video on the class page. And as you can see from the video, we're doing more folds, and we're going to be doing a double fold. And last week we did the trifold. We did 3, the letter fold. So this is a double fold. It's made in a little bit of a different way, and you're going to do that 4 times this week. And we don't have any yeast to aid in that leavening, so it's all going to be the flaky layers leavened by steam. So they're going to be thinner layers as well. And I think that you guys are really going to like this. It's definitely worth the work. It's really delicious. And let's say you're making your assignment and you just forget and you're doing 3 folds, do some extra 3 folds, and you're going to have to let it rest longer. But I recommend doing the double fold. But if you forget and you're doing 3 folds, then you just have to do more of those. Okay, guys, I think you're gonna, like I said, I think you're gonna like this. You can make anything that you like. In the photo in the beginning of the video, there are palmier cookies, which are very classic. They're made with puff pastry. They're glossy and caramely on the outside. That's because they're dredged in sugar, and that sugar is caramelizing, and we're gonna be turning them halfway through the bake. So we've got a nice video on that on the class page, so I'm gonna pull that up and we're gonna take a look at it. And that's an idea for you to get started. You only have to make 1 item with your puff pastry, so the palmiers are great. And we'll talk about some other options as well if you want to make something else. So you could make as many different things as you like. We'd love to see them, but we want to see at least one thing. And like I said, the palmiers are a really great place to start with that. So let's go ahead and share my screen. Hold on for 1 second and we will watch the video. And like I said, this one is up on your class page too. so that is the classic palmier. Pretty easy thing to make. And hold on, I want to kind of get out of this video real quick so it doesn't start playing again. It's been known to happen. All right. Okay, so the palmier classic cookie, very easy to make. As you saw, Chef Thomas rolling it on sugar, and that's the beauty of the palmier. It takes this very neutral dough, adds some sweetness to it. It's dredged in sugar before it's baked in the oven. You'll want to bake it on a Silpat or a nonstick pan. If you bake that on parchment, you're going to have trouble with some sticking. So you can just bake it on a pan. If you don't have a nonstick pan, you can spray it a little bit and then put the sugar down, and then be sure to turn it halfway through, because that's where you get that shininess and that caramelization. So that's a great start for an item to make with your puff pastry. If you look at your text reading too for this week, there are some options that are illustrated in your text reading, so you may want to take a look at those. And let's go ahead and take a look at this. So you can make patty shells or vol au vents, and this is just the puff pastry rolled out, and then a ring is cut and that's put on top. You could put a little bit of egg wash or a little bit of water. I usually dock the bottom of these in the center a little bit so it doesn't come up too much. If it puffs up in the center, you can always hollow it out. Turnovers are a great thing. You start with the square, then you fill it, and then I put a little bit of egg wash, not too much. You want to make it tacky and not slippery. Then you fold it over. You've got to cut some vents on the top, and I use my kitchen scissors to cut vents, but you can use a little knife as well. You can crimp those edges to stick them together a little bit, and just a lot that you can make with the puff pastry. So if you look in your text reading, starting on page 322 at the bottom, you'll see the shells and the turnovers. And then these cream horns, this is something that you could make if you have a mold for it, like a cylinder. And I actually make big ones, and I'll use the interior from my large roll of saran wrap. I'll wrap it really good in foil, and I make real big ones, and I stuff them with cream and bananas, and I'll put those like out on a buffet. So the cream horns are an option as well. The classic Napoleon, this one is a little bit more complicated. It has a custard filling, and then you'll do a flat icing on top with a little bit of ganache, and then you kind of pull your knife to make that webbing effect. So this is the Napoleon is a little complicated, takes a little bit more time. So I recommend starting out with the palmier or the turnover, and I'll give you some other ideas too. And if there's something that you want to make, just reach out to Chef Jason and I, and we can help you as well. And you can also do, here's the palmier illustrated if you want to look at the images. And then there's kind of little ruffle bow ties here that you can just twist the dough and trim it and make it a little decorative. And here's a little platter. So lots that you can do with this dough. It's incredibly versatile. What's nice about this dough is it's very neutral. Remember when we did pâte à choux, that's a very neutral dough, and kind of the filling and what you do with it is what really makes the dough. So a lot of different options of turnovers. You can make some cinnamon twists, like some straws. I'll show you some pictures of that. And all right, so we've got some apple turnovers or cherry turnovers, and just be sure that you're putting a steam vent. Some chefs will finish them with some sugar, some coarse sugar, or even a flat icing. And this is that patty shell, the vol au vent. You could do a bound salad for a filling. Here's like a chicken salad with a vol au vent. I mean, you could go sweet or savory with this puff pastry. And then brie cheese en croûte is kind of a neat one. It's just a little wheel of brie, and you could cover it with the puff pastry, decorate the top. You could do some cutouts with some leaves. Make sure that you egg wash it, and then pop it in the oven. And this is a nice little appetizer. And brie cheese, you could get some little wheels from the grocery store. And these are the, so you can make a cinnamon twist. What you can do is you roll your dough out, and then brush it with a little bit of water, put some cinnamon sugar and fold it over, and then you could slice it and twist it. Finish it off with some sprinkled cinnamon sugar, and these are super nice. You could do the same exact thing with some Parmesan cheese. You could make the Parmesan cheese a little bit more distinct too by mixing a little bit of paprika in it, and then it'll show up a little bit better too. And then this is a little bit more complicated dish, but it is a classic beef Wellington made with puff pastry dough. So maybe we're going to take a look at a bigger picture of the beef Wellington. Okay, so that's the beef Wellington. It's a fillet, and it's encased with the puff pastry dough. And oftentimes you'll have, it's kind of a spinach type of a filling, a spinach and a mushroom filling on top. So that's a classic beef Wellington. So those are a few ideas of things that you can make with your puff pastry, and we're perfectly fine if you do the palmier cookies. If you want to try something else, that's okay with us too. And just keep in mind time-wise this week that you have enough time. Maybe you don't want to make anything too complicated this week. But as far as questions, was I missing anything in the chat? I wasn't looking at it real close. Or Chef Jason, you got anything?
I do, but before, it looks like Linda has a question. Go ahead, Linda.
Yes, my question was, I want to make apple turnovers. Do you put the apple filling on the inside of the dough and then bake it?
Yes.
Okay. Similar to apple pie?
Yeah, what I do when I make my apple turnover filling, I just take some Granny Smith apples and I slice them, and then I saute them with some butter, cinnamon, and brown sugar.
Do you put vanilla flavor in it? Can you put vanilla flavor in it?
Yeah, absolutely. Like that. Yeah, super nice. And then your neighbors are going to be tick, 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 knocking. Yeah, I just saute my apple mixture, and then I let it cool. I saute it until my apples become soft, and then I'll just let it cool, and then I'll put that in the center. And those images in your text reading are really great guides too.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. And like I said, guys, be sure that you are slicing this open so Chef Jason can see the inside. Let it cool a little bit too. I think that I saw a couple of pictures over the week. Croissants, there's a lot of butter, so I saw some croissants that look like they may be a little bit doughy, but they're really not. It's just that they're too hot when you cut them. So we've kind of been talking about it from the beginning when we did our loaves, and especially that hollow was so big. But the same rule is true for even the smaller items. Let them cool off before you slice them, because it could give you that undone doughy appearance. Okay, Chef Jason, what you got? I'm sorry, I've been, just talking away, chatting, yapping.
Yeah, actually, well, first to kind of piggyback on the thing about the turnovers is that, remember, as Chef Susie said, if you're doing an apple, you're going to be cooking that filling, because remember that puff pastry is going to take a lot less time to bake as a pie would. We can put the raw apples in the pie because we can put it in the oven and leave it there for, extended period of time compared to the puff pastry, which, as we all know from baking the croissants, it happens pretty fast. So you're going to want to make sure if you do a filling for a turnover, it's going to have to either be already pre-cooked or at least par cooked to the point where it will be done by the time it finishes baking. And one of the things I wanted to kind of point out, it actually goes back to the very beginning of Chef Tom's video. When we watch him roll the dough, whether it was with the croissants or with the puff pastry, one thing we notice is that he only rolls the dough one direction, north and south. Unlike when we're making a pie dough where we're turning it, we roll, we turn, we roll, we're trying to create a circle. And so when we kind of watch him roll the dough and realize, oh, okay, so it's always a rectangle. It's just going to be a longer rectangle. So we're not turning it. And then when we kind of think about that and we see it, we realize, okay, well, if I'm not turning it, I can get this width pretty much consistent throughout the entire process. I just need to watch my length. And when you realize when you start doing that, you realize how much easier it is to do the dough when you're not turning it, when you're only keeping it in the same direction. And, you know, the puff pastry thing, it's wide open. You know, someone messaged earlier, and what they want to do is they want to bake puff pastry in a round and then fill it with fruit, almost like kind of like a free-form fruit tart. And that can definitely be done. One suggestion I would have would be that you would want to build up the edge a little bit, which is an extra layer of puff pastry. That way you can kind of distinguish the puff pastry from just being a disc and actually being a, you know, a raised bed around the outside to where it can hold whatever it is that you want to put in there. It could be pastry cream, it could be fresh fruit, but you just, what you want to do is make sure you add an extra layer of puff pastry dough around the outside. And that's just a matter of rolling it out, cutting a strip and egg gluing it all the way around the outside. And then when it bakes, you're going to have a higher rim than you would. And there, you know, it's such a user-friendly dough, and it really manipulates really well. And when you have your food glue and extra strips, you could do all kinds of creative things.
Absolutely. I think you guys are really going to like this a lot, and it's versatile. It's very neutral. So, you know, the fillings that you choose for this are really going to make it. And, you know, if you're not sure, go with the palmiers, and then you can freeze your leftover dough, and then you can revisit it another time too if you find some ideas after you get to work with it a little bit. But we're only requiring one thing. You don't have to make multiple things. All right. So just be sure with those palmiers that you're flipping them over so they can get nice and golden brown on both sides if you do make those. And really quick, I want to show you guys the puff pastry forum. So it's pretty easy. This week it's another one of these really fun forums. So let's go ahead and take a look at this before we say our goodbyes. And let me see. Sorry, guys. All right, here we go. Okay, so this is your form on puff pastry. So you're going to upload an article, a photo, or a link to share about puff pastry, what interests you about the product, and what would you do differently. And maybe you're going to find something that you really like that you wouldn't change at all, or maybe you're going to, you know, change the flavor of the filling, or even change the size of it. But it's okay too if you find something that you really love and you wouldn't change anything at all. So it's a super fun forum. So be sure that you're getting in there early. Do your initial post in your 2 peer replies. These discussion forums are a big part of your grade, guys. So be sure that you're not skipping the forum, and just let us know if you have any questions on anything. I know we kind of have a lot for you guys this week. So as a reminder, you're going to make your puff pastry dough. You're going to bake something with the puff pastry. You only have to show us one item, one type of item, but you know, if you're doing the palmiers, we want to see several of them, maybe like a half of a dozen or something like that. So you can choose one particular kind of item to make with the puff pastry, but be sure that you're showing us a few unless it's a single, you know, larger item. And you do have a knowledge check and a conversion check, and then you have your final exam as well. Final exam is multiple attempts. We're going to keep the best grade, but it is timed an hour and a half. It's 90 minutes. Everything is open book. Okay, guys, be sure that you're getting everything in by Tuesday, December the 17th, 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. Chef Jason and I are available for you if you need anything, any questions, if you need any help. And also, I'm going to do special live session, our very last one on Friday the 13th at 5 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time. And then also we're going to meet with Chef Megan, your next chef for BK 201 when you come back in January. And we're going to meet with Chef Megan on Monday at 12:30. I'll record it if you can't make it. It's just going to be a short, you know, hello session with Chef Megan. So it won't be anything really long if you have a lot of things to do. And Linda, I see your hand up.
On the website, I saw they had Sunday for the meeting with the new teacher.
Yeah, it was the wrong date. It was the 15th, and right before class I saw that and I changed it to the 16th. So it is Yeah, it is indeed. If anyone looked at it and it said Sunday the 15th, it used to be Monday the 16th. But
Okay.
if you can't make it, I'll record it, and it's not going to be an hour-long session. It's just going to be a quick hello session, so you guys can meet Chef Megan, and you're really going to like her. As much as I'm going to miss you guys, I've got to, turn you over to Chef Megan, and you'll have a lot of fun with her. She's very knowledgeable, and you're going to learn
I'm
a
gonna miss you too. I'm gonna miss you and all your knowledge.
lot. Well, thank you. I'll miss you guys too. And keep in mind, the offer is open. If anyone wants to join in on my BK 101 class, just let me know after I'm back from break, and I'll send you the link and you can kind of hang out in the chat. Okay. So
Okay.
you guys remember it wasn't too long ago that we started in BK
Yeah.
1, but look at all that we've accomplished since then.
Woo. Yes,
I
a lot.
know. And remember, I told you guys you're just going to be zipping around on the website. It's a lot when you first look at it in the beginning, but I can see that everyone is much more comfortable with the website for sure. It's kind of like home a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Guys, another thing I just wanted to mention, they're going to be doing an update on the site on the 20th, and it's going to be shut down, but you'll be able to have access after that. Once in a while, when they do an update, there may be something that's just a little bit different every now and then. Maybe something is in a different place. So if something looks different to you and you're not sure, you can contact student support. They're going to be available for you guys over the break. Okay. All right, guys. Well, it was great, sharing these last 2 blocks with you guys from BK 101 to 161. And I'm going to miss you guys, especially on our Friday nights. And my Wednesdays and Fridays will never be the same, let me tell you. But we're available on the site, even though we're not in your class anymore. We're available on the site if you ever want to message us and tell us some fun things that you're doing. We'd love to hear from you. And some of you, I'll see you again on Friday in our specialized session, or even Monday with Chef Megan. But thanks everyone for all their wonderful work, and you guys just did fantastic. And it's really been great spending this time with you and watching all the things that you've learned. So yeah, I'm gonna miss you guys. And Chef Jason, I'll miss you too on Wednesdays, and thank you for everything that you did for us too.
Well, you're welcome. I had a great time in the class. Everybody's fantastic. I love the work that you all do, and just amazing dedication. And I can see that passion and dedication when I see your submission. So I know everybody here is going to be super successful in all their endeavors, and I'm proud of all of you.
Yes, absolutely. When you guys start those businesses, be prepared for growth, because they're going to love all the awesome things that you're making. All right, you guys, if I don't see you, have a wonderful holiday. Reach out to us if you need any help, and please start on things early, get them in early. Then you've got that wiggle room. And then after class ends on December 17th, Tuesday, you're going to be going on your Christmas break until January the 8th, Wednesday. Typically, you'll have access to your class on January 6th, so keep watching for it. And yeah, have a wonderful holiday season if I don't see you or hear from you. Okay, guys? All right, take care, everyone.